Thank you, Melinda, for sharing your talents. 2020. Did you think that we'd ever make it to 2020? How many of you thought that the world wouldn't even exist at this stage of the game? I'm one of those people. I remember being 10 years old, and I was carrying a newspaper clipping and walking around our basement. And the newspaper clipping was instructions how to build a bomb shelter in the basement. How many of you remember those times? Quite a few of you, yes. As I mark each successive decade, my wonder has increased at our resilience. Times have changed, threats have changed, and those threats have become even more serious, and they seem to be compounding. Last month, 11,000 scientists warned us that we have a climate emergency. Deep down, we know that there's something wrong, that this culture that we're living in is not working. And we need to change, but most people have no idea. What do we do to help change this world and turn it around? Today, I want to share a story of a plastic spoon and 10 ways to help turn this world around. As an environmental advocate for several decades, I've tried to discover how to frame a meaningful message, a message that would inspire people and help move us in a better direction, because we have lost our way. We have lost our way on this planet. There's an organization called the Global Footprint Network. They calculate something called the Earth Overshoot Day. In 2019, it identified July the 29th as the date on which humanity's resource consumption for the year exceeded the Earth's capacity to regenerate those resources. July the 29th. We were borrowing resources from our children and grandchildren. Some of us have been shocked to see a red bank account at some time. And we, humanity, we're in the red after July the 29th of last year. The Earth cannot regenerate fast enough to sustain the way we consume. I think I finally found an answer as I've searched as an environmentalist, and I'd like to describe something that I call a creation awareness spectrum. Here we have the creation story, we have creation, and we are honoring it. We are sustaining it, we are stewards of it. And as we move along this spectrum, we find our place along it. Many of us have lost sight of creation and the creation story. And when we've lost sight of the creation story, we do things without realizing the impact. Our creation story is or lack of a creation story for that matter, is very personal. It's a source of our identity, a source of our orientation to the world. Our creation story defines how we treat the world and how we treat each other. It's reflected in our actions and in our daily choices. In our Christian faith, the story begins in chapter 1, and part of it was read this morning in Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And as we've heard in our reading, he created the day and the night, the fruit trees and the seasons, the water creatures, the whales, the fowl, the cattle. All of these parts belong to a whole, and it's a huge, huge, complicated ecosystem, and this is creation. And this is a creation that is happening every moment of every day. It didn't just end on the pages of Genesis. And that's what I mean by this incredible disconnect from creation and the creation story. Earth is a living being, with tools and systems. Those are systems that I described over here that love and honor and respect those many systems. Those snowflakes that fall that Julia described just a few minutes ago, that all began as a particle of dust or a particle of pollen, and then became a raindrop, and then a snowflake. We need these systems to survive and be managed sustainably as intended for life. Even as we read the creation story, we too often leave the message on the pages and don't notice that creation and nature are all around us. We don't recognize creation as the source of our food, our materials for shelter, and all of the countless other things that we take for granted. And that's part of how we've lost our way. On the creation spectrum, we can move over to this other side. And here on this side, we have the greed, we have the exploitation, we have the pollution and the destruction of the systems that we enjoy as part of creation. And so we have this spectrum of over there to over here. And we need to find our place on that spectrum as to how we actually live and how we define our creation story. And I will be asking you to choose to move a little closer to this side at the end of my presentation today. I invite you to take a deep breath. Everyone take a big, big, deep breath. That breath is possible because of the leaves. It is a breath from the leaves that created the oxygen that made it possible for that breath to nourish your body. The creation story continues every moment of every day. And all of those services are being provided by God and our creation for free. We don't think of that free part when we think of creation, but there is a tremendous amount that is provided. If you are using oxygen from a tank, an oxygen tank, that oxygen is came from the same source as what we are breathing. They just purified it more. And I might add, they charge a lot of money for what's in that tank. Creation and nature, they provide such great beauty. I invite you, what moments do you remember that have taken your breath away in nature? Think of something, perhaps the sight of the first crocuses bravely pushing their way up through the snow. Think of the smell of the first lilacs, or the dazzling color of autumn leaves. From our Bible reading, there is a phrase that commands my attention that I think many have misconstrued. Have dominion over. It seems like over on that side, many people have interpreted it a certain way to dominate, to destroy. Whereas I believe that God's intent was that we be stewards of his creation. He could not have made creation if we were supposed to just simply abuse it and destroy it. And so I think we need to take close consideration of that definition of dominion and let it be stewardship. We think we're so advanced. We think we are too busy. We lead this busy, busy, busy lifestyle. We have abundant technology around us all the time, and we think it's number one. And our nature of awareness has diminished. And as it has diminished, we've had this great disconnect. We have the luxury of purchasing anything we want when we want it. And I ask, where does your clothing come from? You'd like to say the store. And I ask, where does your food come from? And you'll likely say, the store. And I ask, where does your stuff come from? And you'll likely say, the store. And it could be a virtual store online, or it could be the real store at the mall. And I call this association with our surroundings a consumer creation myth. Everything just magically appears on store shelves, but it was really a very long journey to get to those store shelves. We're just disconnected from it. Every one of those materials was made from materials created by nature. The cotton in your clothing was the cotton plants that grew in the fields. The wool of your clothing was sheared from the backs of the sheep. The oil was what made the polyester. The polyester that was once trees and vegetation buried deep underground, under great pressure for millions of years. And that was the source of your polyester clothing. And yes, all of our food was created by the systems of creation. And I might add, even junk food began as something created by nature. Hard to believe at times, though, isn't it? Today we've come to a time, well, for quite a while we've been in a time really, where we just throw things away. And for a long time, away was way, way over there. And it wasn't something that we saw or we wanted to think about or talk about. We just threw it away. However, away is coming back to haunt us. The plastics that have been taken for granted. How many of you remember a time when there was no plastic? It wasn't so very long ago. Many of us remember that. The real use of plastics really only began in the 60s. And in less than a generation, we have managed to create a problem where we have 5 large garbage patches of plastics in our oceans and many smaller ones, to say nothing of our waterways. It's sobering, it's humbling, it's scary that in our lifetime, less than our lifetime, we have done so much damage, and it's all because of our disconnection. Revelation 7:3 says, "Hurt not the earth, neither the sea nor the trees." I'd like to draw your attention, first of all, to your bulletin this morning. And on the back page is a poster, which I ask that you post on your refrigerator and start the conversations and use it as a reminder. I call it the plastic spoon poster. The plastic spoon. And when you think of a plastic spoon, and how many of you have used a plastic spoon in the last week? Last month? There's a few. When you think, every time from now on, when you see a plastic spoon, I would really like you to think about this poster. It's pretty amazing that our society has reached a point where the effort necessary with our oil and gas discussions in Alberta and what's going on in our country, we are becoming much more aware of what the real costs are to our environment, to our creation, to extract that oil from the ground. Then it has to be shipped to a refinery far away. And how does it get shipped? It gets shipped by pipelines that most of us don't want in our backyard. Then it has to be manufactured in some way and refined and turned into plastic. And then shaped appropriately into that plastic spoon. Then it has to be trucked to a store. And then you have to buy it and bring it home. And what you could have done was just simply bring your own spoon and wash it. It's one of those things where we've just been sucked in by this whole activity of finding the most convenient way to do something. I'd like to move now to the back page of your bulletin, in which I have 10 ways to be greener, healthier, and happier. And I encourage you to have many conversations about this page, because that's how we spread the word. Deepen your nature connection. Unless we deepen our nature connection, we're never going to get it. We're never going to get what our actions are and how they impact creation. Julia did a beautiful job of talking about snow and the creation of a single snowflake. And as you go outside today, I urge you, as you're scraping off your windshield and muttering, that you pause and you think, my goodness, this is creation. It's happening every moment of every day. And look what it's doing for me. And all of the things that make it precious and beautiful and wonderful. And there are 1,000 other ways that you can stop and appreciate creation in your daily rounds. But that's just step one, as you step up the door. To say nothing of the seat that you're sitting on right now, which is part of a tree. Rethink convenience. How often do you say, it's more convenient if I... Take note of how often that thought goes in your head. There's a very high cost for the convenience. And all of that plastic that is floating in these great garbage patches and in our rivers and streams, it's usually about convenience. So less convenient is better. Rethink cheap. With cheap, we have the whole idea that we become great bargain hunters. We just we'll drive across town to buy an item that's a few cents less. But oh my goodness, our obsession with cheap, we usually get what we pay for if it's cheaper. And there's a very long-term impact. And buying, for example, online, which may be more convenient, and it might even be cheaper, and it is having a huge impact on our community retail operations where people depend on their jobs. It's having the whole online shopping and delivery has a huge footprint in more ways than you might consider. Less is more. We're looking at number 4 now, and this will be also on the website for anyone who wants to take a look at it later as well. Less is more. If we buy fewer items but of better quality, and that can be hard at times, I know, of clothes, gadgets, technology, appliances, and replace less often, we are lowering our footprint. That fast fashion phenomena of being disposable is costing us the earth. Number 5, reduce the plastic. We talked about the plastic. And what I'd like to suggest is that rather than taking those plastic forks and those cups, that you carry your own cup. And if you put your card or contact information on it, it's surprising how often it comes back to you too. Another thing I do, this is from my camping kit from decades ago, but any old silverware that you have that's mismatched in the drawer that you don't know what to do with, wrap it in a napkin and put it in your purse, and you've got your own silverware and your own napkin. And reject all that handful of napkins that those fast food people want to shove into your hand as they hand you their bag of food. Carry your own. You can also be carrying your own cloth bag in your purse, and increasingly your own bag to put your produce in so that you don't have to take more plastic bags at the grocery store. Cleaning products. Everyone, it seems, has a ton of items underneath their sink, in their workshop, in their bathrooms for personal care. How could you, first of all, count how many you have, and then see how many you can use up, give to somebody else who would use it, or get rid of in some way, and then buy only the items that you will really use. It's surprising how few items you use and how much money you've spent on them, I might add. Eat local and seasonal. And you say, what do you eat now in Collingwood, Ontario, Canada? It's local. Well, we have local apples, less Mexican berries, local tomatoes that have been grown in the greenhouses in southern Ontario, and more carrots and onions from the Holland Marsh, and more potatoes from the area as well. So there are local foods. Growing up, I ate a lot of squash, a lot of potatoes, a lot of onions, and a lot of carrots because it was local and seasonal. Also, to eat less meat. It's surprising how much the impact of our lambs. Did you know that lamb has a bigger impact than beef? I just learned that last night. The greenhouse gases that are produced and the pollution that's produced in the raising and processing of red meat is shocking. And so I urge you to consider a meat-free day once a week, a red meat-free day. Number 8, alternatives to shopping. Oh my goodness, shopping is a recreation. It's a favorite recreation for many people. And what I would like to suggest is that you make a list of all the different things that you can do instead of shop. When you got this urges, you're stressed, you're angry, you're depressed, you're feeling insecure, and shopping might make you feel better. If you go to this list and say, okay, what can I do instead of shop? You will definitely reduce your footprint. It would be surprising. You can just relax for a change. You could read a book. You could go to an art gallery. You could go on a nature walk. You could actually sit down and enjoy your garden instead of working in your garden. You could call a friend. You could visit a senior. You decide. Make lists together as a family. Make lists with your friends and follow through, because that is one way to truly reduce your footprint. Number 9, less technology. We need less technology. We need timeouts from our technology so that we can restore our soul and devote more time to nurturing the relationships that matter to us most. Our obsession with the next, newest, brightest, shiniest piece of technology. There's about 40 different minerals that are sourced from all over the world. You think that plastic spoon has a big footprint? You ought to see what your technology has. Only replace when it's no longer working. And wouldn't it be nice if we finally arrived at a time where replacing a component was what was done rather than replacing the whole item? It would make so much more sense. And finally, number 10, be kind to one another. We're all on this planet together. We need to recognize that all the materials that are used for everything that we use and be and are created by nature's systems, and we can choose to use less. Let's move that Earth Overshoot Day into the fall from July the 29th by our personal actions. The hope for this next decade. 11,000 scientists declared that we have a climate emergency. Where are you on this creation spectrum of between here and there? It's what you and I do hourly, daily, weekly, and I invite you to refer to this list that is in your bulletin, to prompt you to look at many things in new ways, because what we are really doing is looking at the seemingly familiar in new ways. Begin with 1 or 2, and then add more as it feels comfortable for you. When you embrace the creation story, deepen your nature connection, and truly honor where everything comes from. Your clothes, your food, your shelter, everything comes from materials made by nature. Made from materials that are finite, made from materials that, if we did it in the nature way, would be a full circle of take and make and take and make, rather than over at this end of take, make, waste, and take, make, waste. I invite you today, on this first Sunday of the new year, 2020, to add becoming a steward of creation as a New Year's resolution. Together, we can make a difference.